Welcome to Giants Nation. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump, and we got a mail bag. This is the last episode where we are not previewing prospects or talking about prospects until May, because every episode from now is, basically draft month related or draft recap. Grump, how you doing?
Yo, doing well, Bobby. I am at the salt mines every day doing my draft prep because we have a very, very busy month coming up, but it's my favorite month, and it for as much work as it is to see in front of me, it seems to go by really fast every single year. Before we know it, it's like May is upon us, and we're doing 3 straight days of the draft.
Yeah, it is crazy, and we're gonna talk about our draft month schedule because we are really ramping it up. So we'll that's actually the last mailbag question. But like you said, it is kind of like it starts, and then before you know it, it's like, oh man, next episode is final mock drafts and draft day. So it goes fast. It also really puts you in the high gear of doing, like, because we don't do prospects year round. It really kicks you in the high gear of getting prospects done, which is good for the system. Get that grind in and get rolling. So I'm very excited for it. This year, don't have to balance trying to start a business and all that stuff. Or last year was really a mess. So I'm very excited for it. But we'll do all that. But we got a mailbag podcast to get into. So let's start with the mailbag. Take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blue's Clues Grump. Let's get into the mail.
The first letter, Bobby, is from at ClangBean33. What are your thoughts on trading down from 5? What would it take for you to move?
So for this, instead of just being like, I think I do. This is what I would do. I went and looked. Trades in the top 20 for non-quarterbacks over the last 4 years. So I'm going to go through this quick. So, stick with me here. Last year, the Jags traded with the Browns from pick 5 to pick 2 for Travis Hunter. The Browns got the Browns dropped down 3 spots. They got the next year's first. They got pick 36. And then the Browns got the lesser end of a 4th and 5th round pick swap. Year before, Vikings traded from 23 to 17 for Dallas Turner. The Jags dropped 6 spots and gained a 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. The Texans traded from pick 12 to 3 for Will Anderson Jr. So the Cardinals dropped down 9 spots. They got the first pick of the 2nd round and then a 2024 1st and 3rd round. They also gave up a future 4th rounder and that. The Cardinals then used the pick 12 to trade up 6 spots for Paris Johnson. The Lions dropped down 6 spots. They got the 2nd pick of the 2nd round and a 5th, but they also had to give up a 3rd round pick. The Eagles traded from 10 to 9 for Jalen Carter. Bears dropped down 1 spot and got a 4th rounder. Steelers traded from 17 to 14 for Broderick Jones. Patriots dropped down 3 spots and gained a 4th. Saints traded from 16th to 11th for Chris Olave. The Commanders dropped down 5 spots and gained a 3rd and a 4th. The Lions traded from pick 32 to 12 for Jameson Williams. That's obviously a big one. The Vikings dropped down 20 spots, gained pick 34 and pick 66. The Vikings also gave up pick 46 in that. So I do want to talk about, and then one more. Eagles traded from 15 to 13 for Jordan Davis. The Texans dropped down 2 spots, gained a 4th and then 2 5th round picks. So I do want to talk about 2nd round picks because I do think that's a little more realistic for the Giants. But I am kind of all in on a trade down if possible, right? We've got to have the dance partner. But as we saw, like looking at some of those names, it's not crazy to think that there could be a dance partner in this draft. And I wouldn't be stingy with it. Like when you go through all those trades that I went to, I would do all of those except for maybe the Patriots dropping down 3 spots and only getting a 4th round pick. They ended up getting Christian Gonzalez. And then the one I definitely want to do is the Vikings, where they dropped down 20 spots, moved up 12 spots in the 2nd, and then got a 3rd round. That's crazy that Quezzy did that when you look back at it. because here's the reason why, though. Last year I was locked in. I was like, I want Abdul Carter. I was like, yeah, I would even like Travis Hunter, but I really want Abdul Carter. Like, I think there's a sizable gap in my desire for that player. And then after that, I really becomes mad for me. This year at pick 5, I can get on any given day feel differently about what I want to do with that pick 5. I can make an argument for one of the offensive linemen, Jeremiah Love, Josh Downs, Sonny Styles, and maybe even one of the corners if I like them. We'll be talking about them next week. And this is a year where I would just love for the board to make some decisions for me while adding picks, because the Giants have a massive hole at offensive line, defensive tackle, and even corner, with their assets now only being picks 5, 37, and 105 before you get to the 5th round, where you can't have any expectations for year 1 production for that player, or really even ever. So the issue is who is that trade-up player, right? We mentioned Travis Hunter, Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, Paris Johnson, Jalen Carter, Broderick Jones, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, and Jordan Davis. And while there may not be a Travis Hunter or Will Anderson or Jalen Carter in this draft, I'm certain there's players at the level of Dallas Turner, maybe Paris Johnson, definitely Broderick Jones, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, and Jordan Davis.
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate you doing like the really big deep dive into the history of like, what's moving around and how often and whatever. But just like honestly, in the strictest sense of this question of like, what would it take for me to move? You said like I wouldn't be stingy. Like honestly, anything that the chart says based on who's making the offer, I'm probably okay with. Like and it doesn't really have much to do with anything other than just what the current situation is. Like the top end of this draft, when we get into this draft month and we go through each position, you're going to see this is one of the weaker top end classes. Period. Point blank. I am not jumping for joy for anybody. Like you said, like you could change your mind on any given day. That's not because there are so many options available that like are great. It's just because like there are a lot of holes and there's a lot of guys that are like just okay. Like there's nobody that's just like,
well, here's
unbelievable.
To go on that, but there's nobody that's like the Abdul Carter player where it's like I gotta have that guy on my team. I can't live with that guy not being on my team if he's available. Or even Malik Neighbors to an extent. But it's like there is players I really like, but it's just they're not at those high position of value where I'm like, man, if we pass on this guy, we're really giving up an opportunity there. And then the position of value where corner and O-line, again, Jermon McCoy, the injury, Mansour Delane, I gotta watch him. We will watch him before 1 week from now at the very minimum. And then the offensive lineman, it's like, man, me, I love to invest in the offensive line. I would love to do that. So if I'm trading down, gaining some picks, like I think it can be huge for them. And there is so many holes on this team, and big holes where it's like this draft is not enough, right? Where if they just stick and pick with both their picks, they are leaving the draft with some real issues that can be debilitating for this team. Like they're just not, unless they have the best draft of all time, they're leaving with some debilitating issues, and some very big future concerns as well too. So that's why I don't think I've ever been more all in on the trade down, because 2021 I was like leaning into some new age football stuff, like always take the trade down, always take the trade down. The last couple of years I have not been in on trading down. This year I am back. Like give me the trade down if there's there. Because like I said, if we trade back 2 spots and get a 3rd round pick, beautiful. Like I am taking that, right? Like I said, the only ones I didn't were like trading down 3 and only getting a 4th, or trading down 20 spots, like the Vikings did, and still not getting a great return to go with that. But like all of those I am taking in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like there's no 3rd round pick this year. There's a ton of holes all over the place. John Harbaugh likes stocking picks for future years. You can get that. I mean, like this team is still quite a ways away from being where you want it to be, so getting picks next year, like these are all good things. And like you said, the bulk of the players the Giants could really use right away or whatever, where the positional value, it's in the middle of the 1st round. It's really not at the top. And again, if you have to pick at 5, there are guys I'm perfectly happy with picking at 5, but the faster route to strengthening this roster in this particular draft would be to trade down. Almost undoubtedly, because like even if you move down and like just say all the O-line guys went and now you're picking it, I don't know, whatever, 15 or something like that. All the O-line guys you wanted went, like you still have like Caleb Banks around. Like there are so many other options that are still going to hit a hole that desperately needs to be filled on this roster.
Yeah, and rumors of Caleb Downs falling, like you could still get a guy that you might have even taken at pick 5. So I even put into practice. I went through a simulator, and this is with a whole month of spending every day watching players, which this doesn't happen until draft month for us because we're a Giants show, not a draft show. And so I put in the simulator. I did the top 4 rounds with the Giants picks, and I ended up with Caleb Downs at pick 5, Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle out of Texas Tech with the 2nd round pick, and with the 4th round pick, I took Will Lee, the corner out of Texas A&M. Right, so that's if the Giants had their picks. Then I went and looked at okay, who could be a trade down option? The Dolphins. The Dolphins have the 11th pick. They have the 43rd pick, and then they have 4 third-round picks. 4 third-round picks. So I put, I look at the trade chart, cheated it a little bit to the Giants, and I traded the pick 5 for pick 11, their 2nd-round pick, and then one of their later 3rd-round picks. So I just went from having Caleb Downs, Lee Hunter, and Will Lee, the corner, to I ended up going Vega Iavone, the guard from Penn State, right? Because Caleb Downs wasn't on the board. With the 2nd pick, stayed with Lee Hunter, and then the 43rd pick, either Chase Besantis or Jennings Dunker, whichever is your your flavor at guard. So put in there. Took Will Lee in the 3rd round instead of the 4th round, and then took Bud Clark in the 4th round. So in that practice, instead of me having Caleb Downs, Lee Hunter, and Will Lee, I end up with keeping Lee Hunter and Will Lee, and then sacrificing Caleb Downs for Vega Iavone, another guard in the 2nd round. So really investing in the offensive line, and then a safety I like in Bud Clark, who can fit the system, but he's not going to be obviously having the Caleb Down expectations. But like we said, there has to be that dance partner. But this is a year where I would be a little more willing to, I'd be asking a lot of people to dance. Be like, I'm a cheap dance this year. Just buy me a Bud Light and let's get out on the dance floor, as I'm getting way too deep in this analogy. But the reality is, I think a trade down from the 2nd round is more likely. I even looked at last year, early 2nd round picks. What the Dolphins traded up to? Actually, the Raiders traded out of pick 37, which the Giants have. And they got pick 48, so they dropped down 11 spots, got a late 3rd rounder, and then a late 4th round pick, and then they gave up their 5th round pick. So they dropped down 9 spots in the 2nd, got a late 3rd, and then moved up 8 spots from an early 5th to a late 4th. And then the Seahawks, the Titans traded away the 35th pick. They got pick 52 and pick 82. So they dropped down 17 spots and added a mid 3rd. I'd probably rather do the Dolphins Raiders one there. But that's more likely. But I actually I worry a little bit more about not getting the player that I want dropping low in the 2nd round, because the top of the 2nd round, man, that's a very great spot for players. It's like you get these leftover really good players that just dropped out of the 1st round for whatever reason or not, and they end up being better than a lot of players that go in the 1st round. Brian Branches of the world, Xavier McKinney's of the world, like those types of guys. I'm listing only safety, Antoine Winfield, like
Landon Collins.
Yeah, give me some more high 2nd round safety. So that I'm actually a little more timid to do that, even though I would be willing to do it because of the Giants situation. So, yeah,
there's also just like a logjam of talent around that 20 to 45 range. So, I mean, just in general, that upper 2nd round in this particular draft right now, I would say looks like there's a lot of talent there. But because of that, because of the weak top and then the logjam in the middle, it really scrambles your expectation. I don't really know how this draft is going to go. This could be a really, really unpredictable draft. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm excited because we'll get to our schedule later, but we are doing a top 15 show this year. So 1 week from today, it'll be our just the consensus top 15, not our personal top 15, plus Ty Simpson. So we can do some work on the quarterbacks without having to go all in crazy like we've had to do the last few years. But it'd be nice to just kick off draft month like, all right, this is what I want at pick 5, and there's nothing different. There's nothing else. This is what I want. I want this. This is my order of what I want, and then I want to trade down because these are the clump of 6 players that I would really like to get in a trade down. And like when I traded down, they're Carnell Tate, Jermod McCoy, Vega, like those guys are all.
You had options, I bet, right?
Yeah, it's not even like, oh, I just got stuck in. I got to take Vega Iavone from the guard from Penn State. Like I could have went Carnell Tate. Jermod McCoy is someone who might be a top 5 player in this draft, but he's just coming off of a torn ACL, last spring. So yeah, I really do it. Even like I did that Dolphins trade, and you look at the trade chart would be completely equal if they traded down and only got the 2nd round pick. But it's like I would kill for that pick 43 to trade down 6 spots. Maybe not kill, but like that's basically equal on the trade down. But I feel like teams have been squeezing a little bit more out of it than they would to move up. And the Dolphins, new GM, new coach, you know what? They may identify somebody they really like there. And again, it doesn't have to be the Dolphins. I just use them as an example because they had.
I think it was a good example too, though,
because they have those 4, 3rd round picks. So yeah, I would like to see a poll of like a realistic trade. Like maybe I'll put that out tomorrow to supplement the mailbag. It's like, would you trade down from pick 5 to pick 11 to the Dolphins for pick 43 and just see what people will say? Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to do it right now.
Make sure you list everything you did.
No, I'm just going to say, would you trade pick 5 to the Dolphins for pick 11 and pick 43?
That's it? Just those 2 picks? Yeah. All right.
I mean, that is on the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. That's essentially dead even. I think the Giants are actually like win that by like 10 points.
Okay.
I'm trying to type.
All right. Do you want me to go into the next question?
No, because I want to get early results on this poll. Would you make? As I was tweeting, I typed out. Would you make this tweet? Would you make this trade? Giants receive pick 11 and 43. Dolphins receive pick 5. Poll. Yes. No. While I'm on this, who would you take? Vega Iavone, Carnell Tate, or Jermod McCoy? How about that?
Well, I didn't do Iavone.
You don't have to get definitive because you may have not watched them, but
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't do Iavone yet. So Jermod McCoy really scares me with the injury. I mean, you know how I feel about corners in the 1st round, plus the injury. Who was the other one?
Carnell Tate and Vega Iavone.
Yeah, I like Carnell Tate a lot. I like him a lot.
Yeah, and let me do a PFF mock draft simulator real quick. Let's get to pick 11 and see what happens. Right, and I'm putting myself as the Miami Dolphins. I really want to see
share your screen.
I don't know how to do it on Zoom. Oh crap! I picked the Giants. I'm an idiot. Let me just put it in super slow mode.
I'm screwing you up because I'm talking to you.
Yeah, like maybe they want Ruben Bain, dude. Like they want a Miami guy to come play defensive end for them. That could be the guy. Or they want to get Francis Mariota, right? They want to shore up the offensive line. So I just Mansour Delane's available.
Yeah, that's a good one right there.
Kyle Lemon. Ola Vega, Ione. Yeah, there's guys available. I should have just thrown in a real name to mess with people, but Jacob Rodriguez is available. What, you idiot? All right, let's check their results and then we'll move on to the next question.
Oh, I forgot I was gonna tell people not to do it, and I didn't do that.
Let's see, and we got some replies to it too, so we can see people. This is not as much as I thought. Right now, we're only 19 votes in, but a 68% yes, 31% no. If we got 94 too, I would. Are you watching the podcast, Tristan? Not enough of a return. So, but here's the thing: is people are unrealistic in their trade wants because these mock draft simulators are
I know
terrible.
they've set a terrible precedent for what people expect.
Can I tell you, I love our listeners. There's nothing you guys do more that bothers me, even though it shouldn't ever bother me. I was like, what do you think about my mock? And I'm like, we have an extra 2 second-round picks, extra 3 third-round picks, and a fifth. How did I get all these picks? Yeah, I like this. We got everybody. We didn't have to make any decisions. But all right, next question. We'll check in at the end of the podcast and see what the poll's at.
Yeah, I think we'll get more definitive results. Next question, it comes from @Stan McEwen. If you had to bet on one player who has underachieved as a Giant to bounce back under this Conk staff, who would it be? Conk is a shell. He means coaching staff.
Yeah, he does. He does mean that. Unless he's really thinks that John Harbaugh loves seashells. I love seashells and seashell things. Not my problem. This is hard. So I said I didn't want to say Dexter Lawrence because I don't think that's the spirit of the question of like a superstar player. This was pretty tough. You know who I land on? It's Drew Phillips. Even though I've never been the biggest Drew Phillips guy. He is aggressive, he's athletic, but he just kind of struggles so much in man coverage down the field. But I don't think they're going to put him in that situation a ton, right? It's a zone-based scheme, so it will limit some of his coverage responsibility. It'll also limit some of the playmaking that he did last year. But if you just allow him to get aggressive, move forward a little bit, let him make plays in the run game, like he's scrappy. There's no athletic limitations for him. And you think about the Giants didn't add any nickel corner here where it's like, oh, they look at this guy as like a backup plan if they don't like Drew Phillips. I don't think we're expecting them to draft a nickel corner early on. So he's going to be their starter. And like, despite like some bad coverage last year and penalties, like he did show better ball skills with 2 interceptions and 8 pass breakups. And like I said, I just go back to like, he is aggressive and athletic, scrappy. Like he's got the mental makeup to be a really good nickel corner. It's just about kind of getting honed with your technique and man coverage, getting your ball, making your, a little bit better with ball skills. It's not the worst, but it's just downfield. He's not making plays on the football, and guys are able to work him. Hopefully your nickel corner is not in that situation at tough. But it's like, with Tyler Nubin, he could be someone who has a very short leash as a player under this coaching staff, where it's like with Drew Phillips, it's very clear he's our starting nickel this year.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I think also what you were saying with the zone stuff, I think if he's in zone coverage and they are encouraging him to be downhill and aggressive, if everything is kind of in front of him, I think that actually plays into some of his strengths. Obviously, he just needs to keep getting better and keep growing as a player. And every time that things are in front of him and he plays downhill, when he trusts his instincts, like he plays 100 times faster. And that's when he makes like those impact plays. I know that's usually like in man coverage or whatever, but like on those like wide receiver screens where he always like slips a wide receiver blocker and makes a tackle for a loss or whatever, that kind of stuff. I actually think that like the downhill motion for him when things are in front of him and he's like comfortable, I think he's actually really, really, really aggressive. So, obviously the coaching staff is going to put a lot of like attention to detail that he's not used to also. So who knows where he could and couldn't improve.
Yeah. But I think that I think Jerome Henderson helped him out a little bit as well too. So it's like, hopefully, with better DB coaching and Denard Wilson there, that makes a difference. And like, if they didn't, like he's going to be a guy that Harbaugh likes because of his effort and practice and stuff. And like Roger McCreary's a nickel corner who I actually like a good bit. He signed a vet minimum with the Lions, right? And he worked with Denard Wilson. Like they could have very easily paid him 1 year, 2.5, and been like, all right, yeah, we got Drew Phillips here, but we're going to give, he's got to earn this job over him. And they didn't bring any of that competition in. So I just, there's nothing athletically that's holding him back. And he is a year 3 player. Sometimes we see that with corners. So I think Drew Phillips is someone who's never been his biggest fan, but like there's ability there. And there was some really good games last year where it's like Tyler Nubin didn't have any really good games last year. So that's where I landed on. Who's your guy?
I went with JMS. Just a player that I think I think he is probably a smart guy. I think he is probably going to benefit from structured coaching, more attention to detail because you just look into his past, he's always been like a pretty good player. He has like the wrestling crossover in his past. He seemed like a smart guy that probably takes to coaching really, really well. And maybe, even though and like you look at like his measurements, they're really not all that different from Tyler Linderbaum. Like I think weight wise, they might be off by about 10 pounds from each other. They're about an inch different in height. He has the longer arms, obviously, but that's an advantage. I think that he could. I don't even know that it would be like a bounce back, but like, Giants fans are pretty down on JMS, and I would say fairly rightfully so, especially for where he was drafted and what the expectations are. But I think he could surprise this year and be something that they're not really bitching about at all.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where he landed last year, where I think it was generally the same player. I think I might have even voted him most improved in 24, but actually I voted him most improved in 2024. It was a terrible year for that award. The fans voted Mike McFadden for a second year in a row, which again shows you that that doesn't make much sense. Um, but the difference is there was like a few sacks the year before that he got credit for. I'm like, I don't know if that's his fault. And then he got his ass beat by Vita Vea, and that type of stuff sticks out. Um, so I think right now, like he is a starting center in the NFL. It's just as we try and improve this run game, and we're going to hit on this a little bit in the next question. It's just like, is he going to be an advantage for us? He's not a big time negative in the pass game and the run game. Um, I certainly think he is a negative at times in the run game, but he's just kind of a average player. The other guys I thought could be Darius Slayton. You know, he's certainly shown a lot better than what he was last year, and he could very easily be wide receiver 2 on this team next year. Competition has usually gotten the best out of him, and he's in a full-time competition now.
So, I mean, the only reason I didn't even consider Slayton is because I don't really consider him historically as underachieving. Last year was absolutely an abomination, but it was for Dexter Lawrence too. Historically, I don't think Darius Slayton has underachieved.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Um, Maybe Paulson Adebo, this
That
dude
was somebody I
him a lot
considered.
better, right? Now the worry for Paulson Adebo is he's now still in that corner 1 role, and that's just not what he is, and, anyone who signed even when we signed him, we kinda knew it's like, you probably don't want him in that corner 1 role, but we'll see. But this scheme 100% fits him better. Another year off of the broken leg. So, that's a guy. I wanted to say Tyler Newman, and I don't know, man. I just feel like he just hasn't shown anything, you know what I mean? Where it's last year was so bad, but maybe they're able to get a little more. But I just ended up with Andrew Phil. So like, you know what? Year 3 player. So it's not a year 2 player who has expectations that are too high for what they realistically are. So his expectations have come back down to reality a little bit, and I'm not worried about his athletic ability holding him back or his, aggression. So I just ended up landing on Drew Phillips. All right, next question.
Next question comes from at JJDeekFreak72. Who would read an ad worse, Joe Shane or Tom Fitzgerald?
I would actually say Tom Fitzgerald because his whole thing is he never talks to the media, right?
Yeah, but I was gonna say who would read it better or worse? Worse? I mean, I would say Joe Shane just because he has the more recent bad public speaking moment.
I'll say that though. Outside of that, Joe Shane's been
Outside-
very good at public speaking.
That's
Like
one of the
even
he
the
is very
bye-week press conference where everyone's like, "All right, let's kill him." Like then we're just like it was very weird. I've never seen a press conference more anticipated than that, where it's like everyone's just waiting, like to see if the beat reporters shoot him or something. And I thought he actually did a good job. Connor described it well in our podcast that he fouled off a bunch of pitches. He didn't hit a home run. He didn't even get on base, but he fouled off a lot of pitches. Um, I don't know, but no official ad. But we do have our Patreon members. We got JB Duke, the Duke man. JB. What does JB stand for?
Duke's Mayo.
JB Duke Mayo. JB Well Duke Mayo. Jason Sullivan. Do you see Mike Sullivan got a job? Our old friend. I can't remember where it was. I think he's a QB coach with somebody.
I did not see that.
So Jason will be following him. And then we got good old Dev. Now, he's a good old boy, Dev. If you went to patreon.com/GiantsNation, they are the lifeblood of this show. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the show. We got some cool stuff coming out for that. They're gonna get a discount for the entire month of April on the merch store as we release a bunch of new merch, bringing back some lines and stuff. You get stickers in the mail, a monthly raffle, and I've screwed up so bad. I have not done the March raffle yet. So when you're listening to this podcast, it's got to be out. I got to get it done because it's unacceptable on my part. But hey, guess what? The April raffle is going to be right coming off of that, and we're going to do extra giveaways because we're giving away t-shirts on Wednesday for April 1st, 1-year Giants Nation show kicking off draft month. So you guys genuinely keep the show alive. You allow us to, what the Patreon does when reading these ads and stuff? It allows me to pick and choose, right? There's been, now that we're, there's been advertisers that have come to us and like, sorry, I'm not working with your company. I'm not, not to get into like each individual reason why, but I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to promote that. So Patreon allows us to do that. So patreon.com/GiantsNation, $6 a month. Always encouraged to do the $9.99 month. That's the tier that really keeps us going, but very appreciative to the Patreon. And if Ohio State keeps on freaking locking down these film breakdowns, I hate to advertise this, but like if the Sonny Styles, I'm protesting it or whatever the word is, disputing it, gets like unmarked, that's gonna have to go on Patreon, and I gotta do a Caleb Downs breakdown. So that's gonna end up probably on Patreon too. So those are the only ones. Hopefully, I don't want to do that, but maybe that's what it is. So hopefully not. So patreon.com/GiantsNation. Thank you for keeping this show alive. Next question.
They were glad they did. We love you, Patreon.
We love you, Patreon.
Next question comes from @Beckett20464231. Are you against drafting Jeremiyah Love? Sorry about that, car. Are you against drafting Jeremiyah Love? I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that I think it's a good idea. Could be a great weapon for a young QB.
I have an if in this because, and I also want to revisit Saquon a little bit and talk about that situation too. I have an if in this. I'm more into this than most people because Cam Scattergood was not creating explosive runs, right? Tyrone Tracy might not be someone that they value a ton, right? Like the Giants running backs last year had 6 runs over 20 yards. The Ravens had 22. And again, this is not including Lamar Jackson, not including the quarterbacks. In fact, Jackson Dart led the Giants in explosive runs last year. You've added Patrick Ricard, right? So like we're really trying to make the run game a weapon. But here's where you gotta get me on board. Right now, your offensive line is still not a great run blocking unit, and you don't even have a right guard at the moment. I'm okay with drafting Jeremiyah Love. I think he can be a real weapon for this, but there's got to be more investment into the offensive line. Like, and it doesn't have to be crazy year one, but I'm talking like sign Kevin Zeitler. Don't just bring back Greg Van Roten. Put some void years in the damn contract and upgrade at guard. Drafting a guard in the second round, right? Like if you're drafting him, like you kind of have to tell me you're drafting a guard early on. I would also move Marcus Bowe to center, right? We want to, like, the way to get Jeremiyah Love his best is get him in space. Oh, I need a center who's going to give me some opportunities to pull out there with Patrick Ricard the same way Tyler Linderbaum did for the Ravens. Because again, as much as Love is an explosive threat, if we don't invest in the offensive line, we're going to be having the same Saquon Barkley conversations, and he's not even the same level of prospect as Saquon Barkley. Yeah, he gets big plays, but he bounces too much and he's not efficient. Like if the offensive line is not good, that's exactly where we're going to be at. The same way we're at Saquon without those first 2 years of Saquon, where we've never seen a running back just make something out of nothing. I think we forget how good Saquon was those first 2 years of just creating something out of absolutely nothing. I'm not expecting Love to do it at that level. So, we'll talk about, drafting running backs early and revisiting Saquon, but I'm okay with drafting him, but you gotta put an offensive line in front of him. You can't just run it back and like, this is what we're doing and not draft a guard until the 4th round. Like there's gotta be an understanding that like, this is going to be our priority going forward. If we draft him is building around him and Jackson Dart, which is the offensive line.
So I didn't really expect you to go that way. So I'm a little surprised to say that I'm like My answer is no. And the reason it's no is because I'm in lockstep agreement with you. So, you have to, at that point, you have to show me that you're going to commit to this running game. And like the reason I'm on board with the idea, like just the general idea of Jeremiah Love with this coaching staff, is they do seem committed to the run. They've shown me enough action thus far that they're committed to the run, but the players have not changed. We are bringing back literally the exact same stuff.
Just
we
adding
have
Patrick Ricard. That's it.
yeah. So far, we've added Patrick Ricard. We brought back Chris Manhertz, which is going to be, a contribution blocking, whatever. Brought back Jermaine Illuminator. Brought back Evan Neal. Brought back Aaron Stinney. You haven't yet brought back Greg Van Roten, but that seems like the most likely choice to fill the hole at right guard right now. So I agree with you. So if you do that, then my problem and why I personally feel like it's a no is because exactly what you said. I don't feel that Love is Saquon Barkley. I don't feel that he's the same level of player. Do I like the idea of having him? Absolutely. And picking at 5, I get it, but like I would be okay with it. My problem is, in order to do all the things that would get me on board with it, now, when are you getting your defensive tackles? Because if you're signing Kevin Zeitler, there's going to be, not that there's no money, but in order to get the money needed for the defensive tackles that you're going to need at that point, now you're going to be subtracting. Now you're talking about, possibly trading Kayvon to get $14 million. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Because again, you are going to have to sign your draft class as well. And then, you're using your second round pick on a guard. When are you getting this defensive tackle? You have no third round pick. So you're drafting Love at 5. You're not trading down. You're drafting a guard in the second round. What are you getting your defensive tackle in the 4th round? I hope there is a possibility that somebody is there, but that's the same sort of strategy in a narrow view. That's the same sort of strategy as letting center John Feliciano walk in free agency with no plan, just being like, I hope our plan is to get a center in the draft. We're going to get a center in the draft. It's not quite that level, but it's walking that line in a narrow line. Basically, what it signals, to summarize all that, is that they are going on a very slow pathway towards competing, because all of that investment to one side of the ball, when the defensive side of the ball currently sucks. You have nothing at corner, very little in other spots. Defensive tackle, there's almost nothing as well. Outside of Dexter Lawrence, there is nothing. How are you going to improve all of that? You are going to have to suck for another year. There's just, I don't see you being competitive with a defense that bad.
Hold on 1 second. We'll have to edit, but I just got a fraud alert on my. It's you. Okay. All right. Yeah, but here's where it's like you're just prioritizing Jackson Dart, because that's where I would be a little more. It's like, I understand, and I would view this a little bit more as all right, this is a little more towards year 1 of Harbaugh than it is, a team that's in year 5 and thinks fixing, putting the head coach on it. As much as that sounds crazy, it's because it's like, all right, we're doing that stuff. And I'd be a lot more on board, like you said, if they had hit the trenches a little harder in free agency, right? That free agency really does make this draft like oh boy, we really gotta fill some of these holes. Like their whole mantra of like, yeah, you want to leave free agency being able to play a game. They're not ready to play a game right now. They're ready to get just dominated on the run game, be a liability at corner, and have a huge question mark at right guard, and that could be blowing up Jackson Dart. That's what they're ready for right now. But with the addition of Greg Roman, Patrick Ricard, it's like we could be there, and that explosive run game, it could be a huge help for Jackson Dart, right? It's not sprinkling it on Eli Manning and being like, all right, let's go win a Super Bowl. Let's make one last run, and this is the finishing piece. Because if you want to have a really good run game, or have one of the top rushers in the NFL, the reality is you got to draft them high. And that's where it's like, I remember you kind of saying with the free agency, and I might fall a little more on this, is like next year is the better option to do this. Because this year you don't have that top of the second round running back. And you might be able to be drafting a little bit later, and you're getting the top running back. So that's where I kind of end up is like, man, I'd understand it, but this is almost like a actual wait till next year type of thing without knowing the running back draft class. Because I do find myself, valuing running back a little bit more And people can say, just get a running back on day 3. But let's look at the top 12 rushers in the NFL last year and where they are drafted. Second, first, third, fifth, first, second. So if you want one of the best running backs in the NFL, you got to get them either in the first or second. That's the reality. Is where you're, and I want to build a run game that is reliable and that a team game plans for. But what I don't want is what we have with Saquon Barkley, where a team is game planning to stop Saquon Barkley and not game planning to defeat a good run scheme and a good offensive line. And how do we fit when they bring the fullback in? That you got to build it right. Because if you do build it right, it's a great way to help Jackson Dart grow and not putting too much on his shoulders. And this is where it's like, all right, let's revisit Saquon Barkley. Was taking Saquon Barkley a bad decision? Yes, because one, the quarterbacks who went in that draft, there was a trade down opportunity that they passed up on. So yes, it was. But I think the Saquon Barkley pick would have been much less hated if all the offensive line investments didn't suck. I mean, look at what happened. You had Nate Solder, Patrick Omame, Mike Remmers, Cam Fleming, and then trade for Kevin Zeitler for 2 years under Dave Gettleman. Your draft picks were Will Hernandez, Big George, Andrew Thomas, Matt Peart, and Shane Lemieux. Only Andrew Thomas worked out, and all the other ones were really damn bad, except for Will Hernandez, who was average to below average. So like your only ones that worked out was Kevin Zeitler for 2 years and Andrew Thomas. And then Shane comes in, adds Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, Marcus McKeithen, and John Michael Schmitz for him. So in like 6 years, your offensive line additions being Matt is, well, that screws you, right? Where if our offensive line was better and the run game was better, we would, we'd be a lot more high on it. And when you pair this on with it too, forget just the offensive line. Think about the offensive play calling while Saquon Barkley was here. Do any of these guys scream like we want to establish a real deal run game that's a threat? Like your play callers were Pat Shurmur, Jason, we don't need to identify the Mike in the run game, Garrett, and then Brian Dable, Mike Kafka. Like Brian Dable was the most run-heavy play caller they had under Saquon Barkley, and he never officially called plays for Saquon Barkley. So like, again, I always said that is like, I was totally fine moving on from Saquon, but it's like, man, this doesn't work for either of us with the situation we are. Where it's like the Giants just got to really just build the offensive line and get by. So I'm more open to it than I think most people. But I kind of go back to where I think you had a good take in free agency. It's like, you know what? Maybe this is a thing you wait a year on, because this is a weak running back class with basically Jeremiyah Love, and that's it. Where, you know what, second round, middle of the first round, you might be in a better situation to add that back. And I really do like Jeremiyah Love, but also he's not an A+ type of back, right? Like he does have issues with vision and stuff. He's not the strongest guy in the world, so he'll probably at worst be the second best available player for me when we get to our pick, but maybe next year is the year to do that.
It's the other sacrifices that come with it. I don't love him enough for that. That's all. And that's not saying I don't really like him as a player and what he can bring. Yeah.
Trade
and also,
down.
I 100% agree with your assessment of the current running back room and like where it is. So like adding him is not crazy. Adding an explosive runner is not crazy. But we've talked this one to death. It's time for @WessyWesticles. Giants under Shane have drafted heavily off top 30 visits. Do you expect that to stay the same or change with Harbaugh?
So this is obviously an I don't know, but just do want to talk about the topic overall. Would assume pick number 5 is going to be a top 30 visit. But outside of that, looking back at the history under Joe Shane, 2020 was Evan Neal, Kayvon, and Cordell Flott. And even with the UNC offensive lineman, they talk like they really got some good in-person stuff at UNC with Bobby Johnson working those guys out. 23 was Banks, JMS, Hyatt, and then Trey Hawkins. 2024, Neighbors, Drew Phillips, and Theo Johnson. And then last year was the Netso year, where 6 of their 7 picks were top 30 visits. The only one that wasn't was Thomas Fidone. So it's a to be seen of how much Harbaugh affects that. And I've also had this thought in my head, and maybe this is just totally not reality, but like, is Joe Shane ever going to be like, you know what, let me throw people off a little bit on the trail of this one? Like, yeah, I'm letting myself way too in on it, and teams are figuring out, but also maybe sometimes we overthink that stuff. But I went and asked a couple of people from Baltimore and looked at their most recent draft class. There's really no big example of it, right? So like last year, there was 20 that were reported for the Ravens, so obviously there's 10 missing, but of the 20 reported, only one was drafted. I forget his name. The offensive lineman from was a William or Carson Vincent. Terrible Senior Bowl, by the way. And there just happened to be a Ravens Reddit post about it a week ago, asking about it, and nobody in the comments had made the connection. So it's certainly not something that has been noticed by Ravens fans. So it's a unknown, but it's also for us, Grump. We are getting profiles on every top 30 visit. You know, we talked last year how I was totally unprepared for the draft because of everything that was going on of like getting married and quitting my job and starting a business. But we were so ready for the draft for the Giants because we had write-ups on all those guys. And last year was my ultimate, like, don't judge me on the what would I do at this pick because we just had limited knowledge on some of those guys where it's like, all right, years before we had 100+ write-ups. But it's to be seen. But we will watch every single top 30 visit they have.
Yeah, I'm going to say change for now, and for the future, I'm not really sure. The reason I say change for now is because I looked back as far as I could find on reporting on Ravens top 30 visits, which was not that far back. There's actually little reporting that I could find on it.
I think Giants fans are built different, where we like are just in the trenches with this shit, and people in Baltimore just don't care.
Yeah, they think they like football down there in the what the hell is it called? The DMV. Yeah.
It's all crap.
New
It's
Jersey.
football. They don't care about football as much as they do their crap.
Listen, whatever. New Jersey invented football. I don't want to hear it. Anyway, I'm gonna say change for now, and I don't know for the future. And the change for now is mainly because I think right now John Harbaugh is kind of evaluating everything in the universe, and he's leaving no stone unturned. So I think that right now, I think the top 30 visits may just be, poking and prying, and they're gonna, make decisions based on whatever. For the future, I'm not sure how the dynamic is going to work. I think that everything is kind of being felt out right now between Harbaugh and Shane. And, Shane may not even be here next year. But, even if they continue to work together, I could see them remaining with, Joe Shane and his process and a lot of the people that he brought in, prioritizing, getting to know the player and making sure that we know the type of person they bring in the building. I'm sure. Actually, I'm gonna be an asshole, and I'm gonna shameless plug Just Giants for a minute, because we had
Yes, I forgot to do that.
yeah, no, it's cool. We had Adam Engrup on, who was formerly the director of player personnel for the Miami Dolphins, just lost his job like a month ago, I guess, or 2 months ago. And he was saying that the Giants were one of the first organizations to actually give a shit about like the personality of the player, and I guarantee you that comes from ownership. You know what I mean? Like, they are very worried about the image and how it can be tarnished and what the Giants, embody and, all these like other things that aren't football. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's a non-zero chance that after this year, they, the top 30 visits are very revealing of what direction they're going in the draft. I could definitely see that.
I also think the personality and all that stuff is probably like a little more coach driven. So it's like now that Harbaugh's got a little more control, I could see him like, I want to get my guy that fits right. And it can almost be to a flaw. But like right now, the Giants have 7 confirmed that we know: Arvell Reese, Jeremiyah Left, Carnell Tate, and Mekhi Lemon, who are, consensus top 15 players. So it's like, again, pick 5, it'll be one of, not those 4, but somebody from their top 30 visits. And then the other 3 are Casey Concepcion, Ted Hurst, Georgia State receiver, and then Travis Burke. Like, Travis Burke is ranked 347th in consensus. Once you get to like 240, it's all melding how many people have write-ups on these guys. But like, Travis Burke is a tackle from Memphis. Look out for that guy with the 3 6-round picks. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's, look at the small, the small school guys where it's like, you know what, this is kind of the edge. Like Trey Hawkins, right? Trey Hawkins, I wanted to shoot myself when I'm like, son of a bitch, I did not do any work on this guy, even though I didn't have all 22. I knew I should have because he was a top 30 visit, but I just didn't do. I was so pissed off. You did, and we made a YouTube short out of it. Corey Black last year was their last top 30 visit available on the board. Guess who they drafted? Corey Black. So, Travis Burke, those are the guys where I'm like, all right, keep an eye on them on day 3. We're pick 5. But I think round 2 and round 3 is where it's a little bit less, because you're probably interviewing those guys at the combine and stuff. And it's probably more like, hey, we like this guy, smaller school, Let's bring him in and get to know him and figure out why he didn't go to bigger school and all that stuff. But definitely interesting. Next question.
Next question comes from Colonel Gascon 6. Is Abdul Carter doomed because of the number switch? We are on a hot streak of guys playing their worst ball when they have 3 on.
Yeah, Shepard was like an ending injury. He was already injured before, but like they kicked up. Then you have Deontay Banks and then Russell Wilson. I hate it so much, by the way. Like you say, oh, who cares about numbers? I do. And I freaking hate it so much. I hate that our defensive ends are number 0, 3, and 5. I hate that they have 3 numbers available under the number 30, and they are 12, 17, and 24 with 15 free agents who don't even have their numbers assigned at the moment. Like we're going to go into, like, I hate that Patrick Mahomes is currently wearing number 15 for the New York Jets. I hate that our dog shit, terrible cornerback went from number 25 to number 3 and then said, hey, we're going to change your number again for Russell Wilson, but we're going to give you number 2 when we know that we're drafting either Shador Sanders or Jackson Dart, who wears number 2. I hate this rule. I was one of the only people when this rule changed that said, you like it now, it's going to be annoying come down the road, and it is freaking annoying. I miss the days when a linebacker wore a linebacker number, a defensive end wore what a defensive end wore, and quarterbacks and kickers and punters got actually a choice of what number and not just assigned number 19.
I can't stand it. I mean, from the moment I'm right there with you. We didn't know each other when this rule change happened. But I hate it.
Carter doesn't even look good in number 3. He looks better in 51 than number 3. There's no attachment to it. It drives me crazy. There is no, it's simply, I just want a lower number. That's all it is. If he changed to number 58, I'm like, okay, I understand it wasn't available, whatever. Changing to number 3 just for the sake of having a single digit number drives me nuts. Malik Neighbors even called him out on it. And here's another take. I want to get this off my chest. People are like, oh, I wish, the Sims family would give him number 11. You know what? Bullshit. New York Giants, when someone asks for a retired number, say that is a retired number. If you want to unretire, then unretire it. Don't put it in don't put pressure on guys who earned a jersey retirement to give up their number or be ridiculed for it. Now, with the Giants specifically, they should unretire some numbers because they retired way too many back in the day, but it shouldn't be, giving up 56 or 11 or 10. You know what I mean? So I hate it. It's an old man take, but I think the young people are getting onto this too, where it's like, you know what, this sucks. Is it the most important thing or even important? No, but I do hate it.
No, I don't think it's an old man take. I think it's one that is disguised as an old man take. It's Johnny Knoxville in the Jackass movie. It's not an old man take. Football, the numbers meant something. They were important. They do still mean something, but we've now sabotaged the rules. And it's not that like my position isn't that a number does look cool. I think that whole ridiculous. It's a number, dude. It's just a number. No number looks cool or uncool or whatever. You know what number you wanted as a kid? The number that was worn by a guy that was really good. You care about the guy. You don't care about the number.
Was 56 a sexy number, or did Lawrence Taylor made it? You know what I mean?
20. Everybody my age growing up in any sport you were playing picked 23 because of Michael Jordan. It's because of Michael Jordan. I was 23 in baseball. I was 23 in basketball. I was 23 in hockey. I mean, like, it didn't matter. It's about the guy. Just go play football. And that's what's annoying is that, like, why are you worried about this right now? Like, I want
people will say the same thing to us. Why are we worried about it?
Well, but that's because now because it has screwed things up. It wasn't as simple as like whatever. Like, there were rules for a reason, and now the rules are all messed up, and it's all for the sake of placating people who think a number is cool. A number is cool.
Well, I will say there are cool numbers. There are cool numbers. I will say that, but it has to matter with your position, whatever, right? Like Jameis Winston wearing number 19 it's not cool, but he's not the starter, so I'm not sure. But like last year, Jackson Dart having no number to pick from, where it was like, all right, you have to pay Jamie Gillen a few bucks for number 6. That was his only option.
Ridiculous.
That was it. Like that's ridiculous, and that's the situation you run into. My middle ground rule for this would have been a perfect middle ground. Should have stayed the way it was. But it's this. Only first-round draft picks cannot do the rule number, and it has to be what your college number was, right? So there has to be some like moving, from one to another, right? So, for example, Kayvon Thibodeau, number 5. Okay, you're a first round pick, but it could only be first round picks because second round picks, third round picks, fourth, and again, you can't change to it ever. You know what I mean? So that would be mine, where it's like, all right, it's a first round name value. It's a legacy number you wore in college, but that's it. Because now, like Javon Holland, great. This guy who was where he gets number 8. So now number eight's not available. Deontay Banks is trash, and he's taking up number 2. And guess what's going to happen?
Although by your rule, Deontay Banks would have been able to do that.
Yes, he would have. But he would
would have
been
had
able
to
change
pick it,
from
yeah.
25 to number 3 and then number 2.
Right.
It would have been either, and you can only do it in year 1. It's either this number is so important that you're willing to pay that player for it, or it's not important to you, right? So, and I'm gonna double up on this. And if you kept the rule changes the same, guess what? The only persons that you would have to pay would be a quarterback or a kicker. Kickers are not going to put a high price on that, right? And not crazy price. They're going to be understanding. Or a quarterback. You're not changing your starting quarterback's numbers. And backup quarterbacks, team like, you know what? You got to change your number for our top 10 pick. So you don't run into that situation where it's like, yeah, but this player is just not giving it up no matter what. So, anyways, I'm glad we got that off our chest.
Yeah.
And
'Cause I
it's right.
honestly
You
don't-
could say
yeah.
who cares, but it's right. I care about it. All right, next question.
Next question comes from @AnashiMaps24. Who's a draft prospect you hit on and one you missed on that made you reevaluate how you scout and assess prospects?
I'll let you go first, but there's not really like individual players outside of a couple. Here's 2 individual players of one that went wrong. Is Chaz Surratt at linebacker. I just loved his playmaking. I fell in love with his highlight reel. But he just didn't have the size and overall strength, and he was like to be key at linebacker. I know Robert Saleh likes him a lot, and he can play a little bit in the NFL. But like the run and chase gap shooters who are undersized and not that strong, they don't translate linebacker. And then Evan Neal, where I'm looking at balance, right? How do you deal with balance? And are you only getting by in college because of your length, right? If you're only getting by with length, there's that. But even then, Evan Neal wasn't as bad. But we'll hit on some other ones. But what do you got?
My answer isn't really great. I mean, I can tell you 2 guys that immediately come to mind, and one that I was dead right on when people said I was wrong, and I was dead wrong on. I guess when there was a lot of consensus. I was so wrong about Josh Allen. It's not funny. I mean, I thought this dude was never going to be able to hit the side of a barn. I mean, how much more wrong can you be about a guy than that?
Yeah. But he also is an outlier. I wasn't doing it at that point, and Lamar could have probably been one if I was doing this at that point. But
I mean, like, there wasn't something specific about Josh Allen's game that I overlooked, I don't think, but I think it's more so that my approach at the time was to just, like, completely throw a player away, which I know he's a quarterback, and it's like you either hit on him and or you kinda don't, but, like, even so, like, there was a lot of first-round buzz. I should have done more work on him. I might have changed my mind or something like that. Like, just that idea of me poo-pooing a player right off the bat because I didn't like, some of the things right away, I think is silly, and I've since stopped doing that. The player that I was dead right on was Patrick Mahomes. And that sounds like really flashy, but like I'd have to find it. But there's like old Just Giants episodes where I was just like, this makes no sense. Eli Manning is still, whatever. But like, dude, I would draft Patrick Mahomes in the top 3. Like, this dude is going to be good. And I was I started to like backtrack from that statement as we got closer to the draft because I got so much ridicule for it. And then basically what I learned from that was like, if all of my instincts and all of my work point me in a direction, I don't really care what anybody else says. I will die on the hill of all of my work is pointing in this direction. And I took the bet that I bet on myself. I bet on my own work. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong because everybody else is wrong sometimes too. But I would rather be wrong with my own analysis than be right because I changed because someone made me
Yeah,
feel bad about my
with
analysis.
quarterback specifically, you can't let anybody seep into it because people are just it's quarterback is just so polarizing and people have different motives or different beliefs. Like, here's one I'm gonna say. This is gonna sound funny. You know who I was wrong on? JJ McCarthy. I was way too high on him. I didn't want him. I didn't want him at all. Yet I was still high on him because people were talking about him pick six. Where I was like, yeah, he's you know, he could be, pretty good. And like, here's the thing. I have a tweet saying, I'm surprised at how much better Bo Nix's film is than JJ McCarthy. But I ranked JJ McCarthy over him just because, oh, well, he's younger, blah, blah. It's like, you know what? Why would I do that? If someone's film is much better than me, especially a quarterback, why would I let the age, the age, right? No, I put Bo Nix over him again. I would make Bo Nix my QB4 in that class. And there's other things about like positions, like for safety, man, the film. Do not let testing numbers bother you, right? Whether that's Brian Branch, Antoine Winfield, Xavier McKinney, like those are all guys who had great film. And like even like, a couple years ago, I had Tyler Newman as safety 4 in that class. And I was kind of like, it might be safety 2. But I had Cam Kinchins clearly over him. And then I was like, I can interchange him with Cole Bishop and Deidre and Taylor Demerson. To be fair, I did have him and DTD and stacked right on top of each other in the big board. But it's like those 3 guys in 2 years have 12 interceptions and 17 pass breakups. Tyler Newman has 0 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. So it's safety. It's like the film, but like the athleticism has to show on film. Just don't look at the testing numbers. Cam Kinchins is athletic despite what it's testing. Kyle Hamilton, Brian, those guys are athletic despite the testing numbers. And then center. Like I said before, you can't be average strength and below average athleticism. Don't stress on technique. Don't fall in love with a guy who's living off of technique in college, which is what JMS was. Where I know Joe Tippmann has not been great, but it's like I think I'd rather have Tippmann. And I applied this to Jared Wilson last year, where we'll see what Wilson is. I'm glad the Patriots are moving him to center. He's not a guard, but I'm like, you know what? His film's not great, but I kind of bumped him up around because like this guy is an athletic, perfect profile for the center position. So I'll do that. So like lean a little bit more athleticism or strength at the center position over technique.
Yeah, one thing that I think I've been right about for a really long time, and I don't know that there was a singular prospect that reinforced it, but just over the years, just continually being right on like more day 3 guys, linebacker and instincts. Just the like every linebacker, like the speed is going to vary a lot. And like a lot of the really, really fast ones, they don't have instincts. They play slower than the slow guys that have the right instincts and they just understand what's in front of them. And it's that quick trigger. It's not necessarily how quick they move. It's how quickly they get into moving in the right direction. And that's sort of never really steered me wrong when it comes to, at least for the run defensive linebackers and stuff. No, I actually, it's everything with linebackers. The instincts is like 99% of it, I feel like.
Yeah. There is some positions though where it's like I cannot figure out what I'm exactly like guard. Guard is so fucking confusing, dude, because it's like, all right, this is the profile you look for. All right, I like this guy. It doesn't fit. This guy, this profile doesn't work, even though you like this film. All right, I'm going to apply it to the next guy. Oh, well, he has that profile handle. Well, guard is the toughest. Tackle and defensive end is where I'm probably, despite the Evan Neal miss, is where I feel the best. Defensive end I think is the easiest position to scout. It's like, all right, athleticism, bend, a pass rush plan. And strength too. That's the easiest one. Linebacker's very tough because you never know what they're being asked to do. Different defensive, like a defensive, like I fell in love with Georgia linebackers like 3 years in a row. And I was like, you know what? Their defensive linemen are just keeping them completely clean and they get to play fast. And that's why you like those guys. So there's just different little things. I think the most important thing you learn though is do not let outside opinion and specifically outside praise move a player up for you, because with the draft now being available to everybody, which is good, it's so much better than just having a few guys that you could trust who are just listening to the insiders and basing their board off of what the intel they get from the draft and not actually just on their film. Like that always drives me nuts. There's one draft analyst who's like, I got 47 of the top 50 picks were in my top 50. I was like, that's not impressive to me. That means you're just listening to what, you're getting a consensus from the NFL. If you're a draft person year round, it benefits you to be overly positive. It just does, right? And so where we benefit of not being draft people year round and people not wanting to hear that the second round pick, he's a second round pick, but he's not that good. You're going to look back 2 years and not like him. As us, where we're not just a draft content podcast, we're like, you know what? I think this guy sucks, and I really hope my team doesn't draft him. And I'm not worried about the Browns fans being mad that I think he sucks. So I'd say there's that. But there's also like, man, it's just not an exact science. It's like kind of watch the film, find some testing stuff that you look for in certain positions, and live with it. Get what you get right, get what you get wrong.
Yeah, I mean, every single year I change something about what I'm looking at. I upgrade my scouting.
Here's one. Never fall for the manufactured touches yak wide receiver. Guys got to get the ball up by getting open and running routes. The Malachi Corleys in the world, they're fun to fall in love with. They're not good in the NFL. Bam. All right, last question.
Last question is from @DevilsFan2004. What are your draft weekend plans? Going live for all 3 days? ? Yes, I'll be in this room.
Yeah, I want to give the entire draft month plan that we're coming. So the the appetizer for draft month, Monday, episode with Nick Filato, mid-round prospects. Already recorded that, so that's coming out Monday. And then April 1st is the beginning of draft month. I'm going to go right through our schedule. We are going to 3 episodes a week of Giants Nation show, plus Breaking Big Blue. So April 1st, offensive line draft preview. April 2nd will be my draft month mock draft, right? Like Grump did one a few weeks ago. It'll be mine. Next Friday, we are previewing the top 15 consensus players plus Ty Simpson. Not as in depth as our other ones, where we're going position, going through 8 players a position, but getting getting our thoughts overall in the top 15. Next week, after that, cornerback preview Monday, Connor Rogers Giants mock draft plus a tight end preview, which is a little, a position the Giants aren't. But let's get some quick thoughts off on those guys. Then the linebacker draft preview on Friday. The following week, safety draft preview, a Bengal mock draft, big game Bengal, not the Cincinnati Bengals, plus running back preview, which is like Jeremiyah Love, and then a few, maybe some day 3 guys we like. And then defensive tackle preview to finish that week, and then draft week, wide receiver draft preview to kick it off. Then we will do our draft day plus final mock drafts podcast. We will be streaming for all 3 days of the NFL draft. Every single pick we will be streaming for. And then also a round 1 recap on Friday. A full draft recap the Monday following the draft, and then the 2 episodes following that, a review of every undrafted free agent that the New York Giants sign, plus film breakdowns on every Giants player they pick. And I hope they get film breakdowns done on basically all their options at pick 5, right? We got Sonny Styles done, Jeremiyah Love. I'm going to try and get the offensive line one was done upcoming with Francis Malioa and Vega Iovone from Penn State. And then obviously Caleb Downs and all those cats. So I'm excited for it, Grump. We're going to kill it. We've got a good plan for it. Supplementing some other people's mock drafts to kind of give a little more clickbait while also giving us time to get it done. But I'm excited for it. Three days a week plus Breaking Big Blue plus film breakdowns plus draft streams. I'm very excited for it. We kill it every year. And I know we're going to do it this year too, Grump.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on a good pathway. I have like a day-to-day schedule now where every single day I'm doing at least 2 players in addition to everything else I've got going on. So it's just going to be that rhythm every single day for a couple of weeks. And then the next thing I know, I'm going to be freaking out that I only have X amount done. And next week is the draft because I do it every single year. And then
it's the worst feeling in the world. And then but then you feel very accomplished after the draft. Unless they pick a bunch of players we didn't do write-ups on. Then then
it's just like, well, I guess I have a lot of stuff to watch still.
Yeah, dude, that means we're doing the draft recap podcast at 4 a.m. Because we got to watch a lot of film on Sunday. That was 2022, where it's like, all right, I have to watch film on Cordell Flott, Josh Azudu, Micah McFadden, Marcus McKeithen, and DJ Davidson. I have to watch film on all those players, plus refine my film on the other guys that they drafted. Plus, yeah, that was a long one, and that one was 11 picks, so that in nature is long. Like the draft recap's always like an hour 20. That one might have been like an hour 40 because there was so many players. But all right, that's an episode. Very excited to kick it off. Thank you guys for sticking with us. A little bit of a longer podcast, but I think you guys like that, especially with the mailbags. I thought this was a great mailbag. I was a little worried there'd be too many questions of like, hey, who do you want to draft? So good stuff. We will see you guys on Monday with Nick Filato. And then draft month is a full go. We appreciate you guys. See you on the next one. Until then, let's go Big Blue.